and then we'll get started with lesson 8 here. And as I've told you guys before, this is material that ARRL provides to instructors, and I've taken it and added some things to it. I don't think I modified this module very much, but the other modules I did add additional information for. And all of the things that we are studying as far as the technician license is concerned, this will be good through June 30th of 2026. So every 4 years, they adjust the test questions. And when I say adjust, they will go in and they'll eliminate a few, they'll add a few, but basically the test questions will stay the same. They just kind of clean them up. They'll look at one that maybe doesn't make sense and they'll either eliminate it or rewrite the question. Uh, uh, in this course, in this module, we're going to talk about operating regulations, talk about a control operator, talk about how you identify when you're on the radio, interference, either natural or man-made. We'll talk about that. Third-party communications and how you handle that, and what third-party communications are. And then we'll talk about remote and automatic operation and prohibited transmissions. There are some things that you're not allowed to transmit on ham radio. And everybody's seen this, but this is my charge is that ham radio is a hobby of 1,000 hobbies. There's lots of different things once you get your license that you can get into, um, from anywhere from doing a net to doing POTA, Parks on the Air, to contacting satellites, contacting the space station. I mean, there's building antennas, hunting foxes. In fact, we had a fox hunt this past weekend, and what a fox hunt is a transmitter is set up and it starts transmitting a signal, and radio operators use their equipment, such as a Yagi antenna. I had a loop antenna, and it's hidden somewhere in the community. And you try to find where that fox is, and we were all very successful with that. I just want to stop and verify. Everybody can see my screen tonight, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. I've been go. I had one lesson and I went several slides in before I realized I wasn't sharing my screen. All right, what is a control operator? Well, a control operator is a licensed operator who is responsible for making sure you follow all the FCC rules. In other words, as a ham radio operator, you want to make sure that you follow the rules as laid out by the FCC. The control point, and again, I'll point out when you've got something in red, that's more than likely a test question. The control point is wherever the control operator operates the transmitter. So, and that control point can be remotely. The station license is responsible for designating the control operator. All transmissions must be made under the supervision of a control operator, and the control point can be remotely located and connected by phone lines, the internet, or a radio link. Most of the time, the control point is going to be where the radio is located. Privileges and guest operating. A control operator may operate the station in any way permitted by the privilege of their license class. So if you're a technician, you have to operate your radio within the bands that you are given on this card. Or if you're a general or extra, you have to operate within those band privileges. Regardless, regardless of the station's owner privileges, you may allow another amateur to use your station as a guest operator. So if I'm using my radio in a park and I'm doing a Parks on the Air activation, and I've got a buddy of mine that's also a ham radio operator, and we're wanting to do a Parks on the Air activation. Rather than both of us set up a radio, we can share a radio. He can be the guest operator, and we just operate. We take turns using the same radio. The guest may operate under your privileges as long as you're present. If you walk away, the guest may operate only under his or her privileges. If unlicensed, they have no privileges. So if you've got somebody with you and you want them to operate, they can operate under your privileges. But if you leave the station and they're not licensed, they can't operate. So you'll see mainly when guests are coming to operate their radio, operate your radio. It's usually during an event such as a field day. Coming up, we'll have Winter Field Day. And so we'll invite people from the community, hey, come see what ham radio is about. And we can actually put them on the radio as long as we have an operator present. If you're the guest and have a higher license class than the station operator, you may operate under your privileges. So if you've got a radio and you've got a technician operator and an extra operator, the technician would have to operate under the technician license, and the extra could operate under their privileges. Both the guest operator and station owner are responsible for proper operation of the station. The control operator is responsible for the station's transmissions. The station owner is responsible for limiting access to the station only to responsible licensees who will follow the FCC rules. So you have to make sure you don't leave your radio like if you're in a park. One, you wouldn't want to leave your radio unattended because it might be somebody might steal it. But the other thing is you don't want to leave a radio unattended for a non-licensed person to try to get on and to operate. That would be a violation. Identification. Your call sign is your identity on the air. So you don't throw out your name when you're on the radio. You can, and most people will know who you are by your call sign when you're operating. Identification rules apply at all times. Unidentified transmissions, that is, no call sign, are not allowed. Now, I'm going to tell you, once you get into the ham radio and you start listening to people talking on the different bands, you're going to find that there'll be a group of people out there and they'll be talking for hours on end, and you have no idea who they are because they don't give their call sign. They're really violating the FCC rules. But unless you track them down, there's no consequences for that. But if you want to operate and be a good citizen on the air, you will give your call sign every 10 minutes. Exceptions. The only exception to not giving a call sign is when you're controlling a model craft, whether that be a model boat, a model airplane, a model drone. There's no call signs given with those model craft. To make a short transmission to test an antenna or make adjustments to your radio, just state and send your call sign. So if you're working on a radio, you just throw out your call sign. I could throw out my call sign and say KY4 JPS. Don't key the microphone and listen for the repeater signal. That's called kerchunking. And I will tell you, people do that. It's up to the community, and most communities are not going to say anything, but you'll hear, like tonight, our net starts at 9 o'clock Central Time, and I guarantee you about 5 or 10 minutes before the net will start, you'll hear some people keying up the repeater, and they don't throw out the call sign, they don't say anything, they're listening for that repeater signal, so they're ka-chunking the repeater. Give your call sign at least once every 10 minutes during a contact and when the communication is finished. So what you're supposed to do if you're talking to somebody over the airwaves every 10 minutes, you should give out your call sign like this is KY4 JPS. Or you may say, I'm going to stop and identify KY4 JPS. And then when you finish your communication, what I try to do, like if I'm on a net and I'm giving a report on the net, I'll say, well, I'm going to turn it back to net control. This is KY4 JPS. So I always end my transmissions, or try to, with KY4 JPS. Now, as far as identifying every 10 minutes, If you go over a minute or two, the FCC is not going to storm your house and take away your radio equipment, but it's just good practice to try to stay within that 10-minute limit. There is even some clocks that you can buy through Gigaparts and some other ham radio dealers that it's kind of like a chess clock. You press the button, and then at every 10 minutes, it's going to beep or make some kind of little noise, and that cues you to go ahead and give your call sign out. So every 10 minutes, again, it's in red, so you're going to get a question on that. If you're using a phone or your voice, you're required to identify in English, even if communicating in another language. So you will hear Spanish-speaking people maybe on the airwaves, and if they identify properly, they should identify or give their call sign in English. FCC recommends using the phonetics when you identify by voice, KY Ford JPS, or I can say Kilo Yankee Ford Juliet Papa Sierra. And the reason they recommend that is it's easier to identify your call if you're using Kilo Yankee Ford Juliet Papa Sierra. Maybe you're talking to somebody and you're down in their noise. So if you use phonetics, they can understand that a little better. You may give your call sign by CW when communicating by voice. Oftentimes, you'll hear a repeater. A repeater has to identify every so often as well, and it's automated and it's running by itself. You'll hear it identify with Morse code, and that's why. So, tactical calls. Tactical call sign or tactical IDs help identify where a station is and what it's doing. Can be used at any time, but are usually used in emergency and public service operation. They allow consistent identification that streamlines communication based on function. Regular identification rules apply. Give your FCC assigned call sign every 10 minutes and at the end of the communication. When a new operator takes over a tactical station, he or she will give their FCC assigned call sign along with the tactical call. Self-assigned indicators. When operating away from your home station, add information to your call sign so other stations are aware of your location. FCC Part 97.119 says one or more indicators may be included with the call sign. Such indicators must be separated by the call sign with a slant mark, I call it a slash, or by any suitable word that denotes the slant mark. If an indicator is self-assigned, it must be included before, after, or both before and after the call sign. For example, KL7CC could identify as W3/KL7CC or KL7CCW3 using stroke, slash, or portable between the indicator and the call sign. Indicator may not conflict with some other indicator specific in the FCC rule, such as /KT, /AG, or /AE. And these are upgraded license class. So when you get, after you get your technician license and you pass your general test before you get your general license in the FCC database with that certificate of successful completion, you can still operate as a general. You just have to add /AG or /AE if you've upgraded from general to extra. The indicator may not conflict with a prefix assigned to some other country. So, test transmissions. Identification rules apply to on-air test transmissions. I'm grabbing my water bottle here. Call sign must be given once every 10 minutes and at the end of transmissions. Keep transmissions, test transmissions brief. Avoid causing you want to avoid causing any kind of interference. keep from occupying or an otherwise useful frequency. Usual method of identifying during a test transmission. If you're voice, you can say K0ILP or Kilo Zero, India, Lima, Papa, testing. I've actually heard people say Kilo Zero, India, Lima, Papa, radio test. And if you do a radio test, if somebody's listening to the frequency, they may come back to you and say, yeah, you're sounding fine, or, give you a signal report. With Morse code, it would be uh, you would actually key K0ILP BBB for testing. Now, some practice questions. When may an amateur station transmit without a control operator? When using automatic control, such as in the case of a repeater. When the station licensee is away and another licensed amateur is using the station. When transmitting station is an auxiliary station. D, never.
Never.
Never. An amateur station cannot transmit without having someone present. So the answer is D, never. Who may be the control operator of a station communicating through an amateur satellite or a space station? Only an amateur extra class operator, a general class or high licensee with a satellite operator certification, only an amateur extra class operator who is also an AMSTAT member, or any amateur allowed to transmit on the satellite uplink frequency. We actually talked about this last week, I believe. And the answer is going to be D, any amateur that can transmit on the satellite uplink frequency. Who must designate the station control operator? The station licensee, the FCC, the frequency coordinator, any licensed operator. It's going to be who the station is licensed to. So the station licensee can designate a control operator. What determines the transmitting frequency privileges of an amateur station? The frequency authorized by the frequency coordinator, the frequency printed on the license grant, the highest class operator license held by anyone on the premises. Now that's tricky. The class of operator license held by the control operator. Now this says, I'll tell you, this is a trick part here because it says anyone on the premises. That could be, they could be in the backyard, but if they're not near the radio, they're not operating the radio. So you can scratch C. So the answer is going to be D, the class of operator license held by the control operator. So just because you have let's say you've got an extra class operator at your house, and you're a general and you want to operate in the extra band with that operator, if he's in the backyard, you can't do it because he's not actually there controlling the radio.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the difference between the licensee and the control operator?
The licensee is the person who maybe owns the radio, and they have, like I would be the licensee, and I hold an extra class license. And let's say you're a technician and you're sitting operating the radio, you're the one in control of the radio. So unless I'm standing with you, you would have to operate as a technician. Does that make sense? The control operator is the one that's actually operating the radio.
Gotcha. So it can change like day to day. It's not something that's like written on paperwork and then set in stone.
You could be the station licensee and the control operator at the same time.
Okay.
Because, like in my case, if I'm hunting parks on the air, I'm the control operator. I'm operating the radio, but I'm also licensed as an extra class amateur. So I'm the licensee, but I'm also controlling the radio. You could have somebody, if I had a friend over and they were a technician, um, if I'm sitting there with them, we could operate as an extra. But if we're not, if I'm not, I'm out in the backyard. They have to operate as a technician on the radio.
Got it.
Okay. What is the amateur station's control point? The location of the station's transmitting antenna, the location of the station's transmitting apparatus, the location at which the control operator function is performed, the mailing address of the station license.
The location of
Hey.
the stations. I'm sorry.
All right,
I'm
go.
sorry.
What was the answer, George?
A.
A?
Yes, sir.
Nope,
Oh.
not A.
It's the location of the station's transmitting apparatus.
Nope. Think again. The location of the station's transmitting antenna. We're talking about the control point where you're going to operate the radio from, the control of the radio. It's not going to be at the antenna. It's not
Oh,
going.
I don't know.
I heard Brittany, what'd you say?
I said D, but then you continued to talk and it made me second guess myself.
Okay. The answer is C, the location at which the control operation function is performed. This part, B, kind of would make sense, where the station's transmitting from. But the answer that they're looking for is the control operator function. That's the key for this question. I would have said either one. I bet this question gets revised on the next round. But it's not the mailing address of the station license either. So you can scratch D, C, B, and C. It's where the control function or the control operator function is performed, where you key up that mic. So the answer is C. When under normal circumstances may a technician class license be the control operator of a station operating in an amateur extra class band segment? Now it's just asking, can a technician, what condition can it says when under normal circumstances may a technician class licensee be the control operator of a station operating in an amateur extra class band segment? A, at no time. When designated as a control operator by an amateur extra class licensee as part of a multiple operator contest team, when using a club station whose trustee holds an extra class license. Now, before you choose your answer, this is saying under normal circumstances. So we're not going to assume that there is a higher class radio operator on site. So let's assume that there's nobody else on site. So what do you think the answer is going to be?
A.
A.
A, at no time. They cannot operate in the extra class band segment under any condition unless there's somebody there with them. So the answer is A. When the control operator is not the station licensee, so we've got somebody that's operating a station, but that station is owned by another amateur radio operator, who is responsible for the proper operation of the station? All licensed amateurs who are present at the operation, only the station licensee, only the control operator, and the station licensee.
B. Only the station license.
Close.
Oh.
Close.
Did they say D?
D? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I would guess.
Yes, it would be the control operator and the person that owns the station. So it's going to be both of them. So if you've got somebody there operating your radio, they may not know the condition of your antennas and all that stuff. So you, as the owner of the station, are responsible as well. So the answer is going to be D. Who does the FCC presume to be the control operator of an amateur station, unless documentation to the contrary is in the station records? Is it A, the station custodian, the third party participant, the person operating the station equipment, the station licensee?
And this would be D.
This one would be D. That is correct. So the FCC presumes that the control operator is going to be the person that owns the station. So the answer is D, the station licensee. What do the FCC rules state regarding the use of the phonetic alphabet for station identification in amateur radio service? Is it A, it is required when transmitting emergency messages? It is encouraged, B, it is required when in contact with foreign stations, or D, all of these choices are correct.
It is encouraged.
B.
B, it's encouraged. You don't have to use the phonetic alphabet, but I will tell you, as you get into contests, and like I like to do a lot with POTA, you find that by using the phonetic alphabet, you're able to make better contact with other amateur radio operators. They can understand you better. So by using the phonetic alphabet, it makes it easier for other radio operators to understand you. So the answer is B. When may an amateur station transmit without identifying on the air? When the transmissions are of brief nature to make station adjustments, when the transmissions are unmodulated, when the transmitter power level is below 1 watt, when transmitting signals to control a model craft.
D.
D. It's going to be D when you're controlling a model aircraft, model boat, a drone. The amateur station that's doing the transmitting, you don't identify. So the answer is D. When are you required to transmit your assigned call sign? At the beginning of each contact and every 10 minutes thereafter, at least once during each transmission, at least every 15 minutes during and at the end of communication, at least every 10 minutes during and at the end of the communication.
A.
A.
It'll be at least every 10 minutes during and at the end of communication.
At the end of the communication. So the answer is D.
Hmm.
So while both of them say 10 minutes, and that's correct, you should identify every 10 minutes. You don't necessarily have to give your call at the beginning. It's a good idea, especially if you're talking to another station. For example, I may be on the air and I'm trying to contact another station. I'm gonna give that station's call sign first, followed by mine. So I may say KO4 XYZ. This is KY4 JPS. So the actual answer is going to be every 10 minutes during at the end of the communication. So the answer is D. What language may you use for identification when operating in a phone subband? Any language recognized by the United Nations? Any language recognized by the ITU? English? Or D, English, French, or Spanish?
English.
C, it's going to be English. You should identify, even if you're speaking in French, when you identify, you give your call sign, it should be in English. What method of call sign identification is required for a station transmitting phone signals? Send a call sign followed by the indicator RPT. Send a call sign using CW or phone emission. Send a call sign followed by the indicator R, or send a call sign using only phone emission.
B.
B, you can do your call sign either using CW or phone means voice, so you can give your call sign KY4 JPS. So the answer is going to be B, either voice or CW. How often must you identify your FCC assigned call sign when using tactical call signs such as race headquarters? Never. The tactical call is sufficient. Once during every hour, at the end of each communication, and every 10 minutes during a communication, at the end of every transmission.
At the end of each communication and every 10 minutes during a communication.
C, Charlie, that is correct. Which of the following self-assigned indicators are acceptable when using a phone transmission? KL7CC stroke W3, KLC is KL7CC, or Kilo Lima 7 Charlie Charlie slant Whiskey 3, Kilo Lima 7 Charlie Charlie slash Whiskey 3, or all these choices are correct?
I would say C.
All these choices are correct.
It's going to be D. All the choices are correct. You can use stroke, slant, or slash in your identification there. Just whatever word's easier for you to say. So all the choices would be correct. Which of the following is required when making an on-air test transmission? Identify the transmitting station. Conduct tests only between 10 and 6 a.m. local time. Notify the FCC of transmissions. Or D, all these choices are correct. Well, we didn't talk about this at all, so we can scratch that one. So we know D's not going to be correct. And notify the FCC of transmissions. That's not correct. So the only answer we have left is A, identifying the transmitting station. All right, let's talk a little bit about interference. Interference is caused by noise and by radio signals. Interference from natural sources or unintentionally radiated signals from appliances, industrial equipment, or computing equipment is called QRN. That reminds me, if I'm in my home and I'm trying to hunt parks on the air, if the washing machine starts up, even though I've tried to choke the noise out of that thing, I can pick it up on my radio. So that's appliance noise. If your radio is near your computer equipment, it may be picking up noise from your computer. So all that noise is QRN. Interference from nearby signals is called QRM. So you may be on the radio and there's another strong station 3 or 4 or 5 kilohertz up from you, but you can still hear them. That is radio signal noise, and that's called QRM. Harmful interference is a transmission signal that seriously degrades, obstructs, or interrupts communication of a regulated service. No one has absolute right to any frequency. And that's a touchy subject in the ham radio community because there are certain nets that are held on certain frequencies and they're off limits. But people occasionally try to challenge that. So, but really, no one has absolute right to any frequency. You have as much right as the next guy down the street. Willful interference is intentionally creating harmful interference and is never allowed. Does it happen in real life? Yes. If you're a POTA activator, you'll find that if you get on a certain frequency, somebody will interfere with your transmission because they don't like POTA. And so you've got some, what I call sad hams out there that will do willful interference. Now, what are third-party communications? Ham radio is frequently used to send messages on behalf of unlicensed persons or organizations. Third-party communication definition is a message from an amateur station control operator to another amateur station control operator on behalf of another person. The other person is the third party. So let's say I have a brother that's 200 miles away and I'm communicating with my brother. He's a ham radio operator and I'm a ham radio operator. And mom lives with me and mom says, tell brother Bill that I love him, So I can relay that message from my station to his, and or Brother Bill may have another brother that lives with him, and my mom may say, "Tell Brother Johnny that I love him," but Johnny's not a ham radio operator, so the people that are not a ham radio operators, and we're transmitting the message to the other ham radio operator to be given to the other person, that other person is the third party. Rules change when signals cross international borders. Only certain countries allow third party communications with U.S. hams, and that's called third party agreements. The list of countries with third party agreements with the U.S. can be found at that link on the ARRL website, and there's quite a few countries that will allow third party agreement, but there are some countries that you can't send third party messages to. All right, now we're going to move to remote and automatic operation. Stations such as repeaters and beacons operate without human control operator present. If you get on a frequency, a repeater frequency, and you sit there and just listen to that frequency, ever so often you're going to hear that repeater identify, usually with Morse code, and give its call sign. So they're operating. They sit there and they operate. There's nobody there that runs the repeater. It runs on its own. They must be operated in compliance with FCC rules, no matter where the control point is located. Local control, a control operator is physically present at the transmitter. Remote operation, the control point is located away from the transmitter. A control operator operates the transmitter indirectly via some kind of control link. Control operator must be present at the control point during all transmissions. An automatic operation, the station operates under control of devices and procedures that ensure compliance with the FCC rules. So you have a repeater sitting out here, and it's just listening and retransmitting. So it pick up a signal on one frequency and it transmits it out on the other frequency for other radio operators in the area to listen to. The control operator is going to be the person sitting at their station transmitting to that repeater. Now, repeaters do go down from time to time and they have to be worked on. They have to be set up so if they do malfunction, they stop after 3 minutes. Or if somebody gets on the repeater and they keep talking more than 3 minutes, the repeater will shut down. So that's part of the built-in control of the device. Control operators are required but need not be at the control point when the station is transmitting. And repeaters, beacons, and space stations and digipeaters that relay messages are allowed to be automatically controlled. I've got my screen here on the bottom, and let me see here. Hold on here just a second. Nope, don't want to do that. All right. Now, responsibilities. No matter what type of control is asserted, the station must operate in compliance with FCC rules at all times. Repeater owners must install the necessary equipment and procedures for automatic control that ensures the repeater operates in compliance with FCC rules. Even if a repeater is on remote control, repeater users are still responsible for the operation via the repeater, proper operation via the repeater. Now, what are some prohibited transmissions? 4 types of prohibited communications in the ham radio community are unidentified transmissions, no call sign. And as I said earlier, you can get on a radio and listen to people talk, and they may go for hours and not give a call sign. If they're operating within FCC rules, they're going to give that call sign every 10 minutes. False or deceptive signals using someone else's call sign. You're not supposed to do that. I remember of an incident one time we had a net going on, and sounded like a young person, gave got on and was talking on the net, and they threw out a call sign, and that call sign uh, was not their call sign, because a lot of people will have a piece of software on the computer and they can look up a call sign instantly while they're talking, and that person gave a call sign of somebody in Arizona. So we asked that person not to transmit, and they disappeared. We never heard from them again. Now, does that mean somebody from Arizona could move here and use their call sign? Yes. But we could tell, you can just tell that that person was not an amateur radio operator. Giving false distress or emergency signals, those are not prohibited. It's kind of like screaming fire in a crowded room. You can't do that in a crowded room, and you can't do it over the radio. Obscene or indecent speech, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to use just good old plain language, but you'll hear some people that get on there and they don't use good speech. Regular communications that should be reasonably be performed through some other radio service are prohibited, such as directing boat traffic. That should not be done. That should be done on marine VHF channels. So you shouldn't be using the amateur radio service for another radio service that's available. Communications in return for some kind of compensation is prohibited. You can't get on the radio and talk about the Pizza Hut down on the square, how good their pizza is, and come and join me because I'm the owner of the Pizza Hut. You know, I can't use my radio to advertise my business. Business communications, no transmissions related to conducting your business or employees' activities are permitted. You can order things over there as long as you don't do it regularly or as part of your normal income making activities. You can advertise equipment for sale as long as it pertains to amateur radio and it's not your regular business. Every Tuesday night on our local net here, we have what we call a trader's net. And it's for the amateur radio operators in the area. If they've got a piece of equipment they no longer use and they want to sell it, they can get on the radio, tell folks about it, say, here's what I'm asking for it. If you're interested, give me a call. We do that, and it's not part of anybody's business. We don't have any ham radio operator that gets on there every week and says, hey, come see my radio business I have. I've got all kinds of stuff. It's usually somebody that's got a little HT or something that they want to sell, and so it's not a regular business. You cannot be paid for operating an amateur station. So you can't go to a meeting and say, hey, for $100, I'll set up my amateur radio station here and operate it for you and show you how it works. You cannot be paid for anything when it comes to operating your station. One exception to business prohibition is that teachers may use ham radio as part of their classroom instruction. So what that means is I'm a teacher and I'm very interested in showing my students about ham radio. I can teach them about ham radio. I'm being paid to teach, but I'm teaching ham radio as part of my classroom instruction, so I can be paid for that. But so teachers are exempt from that. It must be incidental to their job and can't be the majority of their duties. All right, now encrypted transmissions. Encoding that uses codes or ciphers to hide the meaning of a transmitted message is called encryption. Recovering the encrypted information is called decryption. Amateurs may not use encryption techniques except for radio control and control transmissions to space stations. Broadcasting and retransmission. Broadcasting consists of one-way transmissions intended for the reception by the general public. Hams may only broadcast when transmitting code practice, communicating information bulletins for other amateurs, necessary for emergency communications. Hams are prohibited from assisting and participating in news gathering by broadcasting organizations. So you can't get on your ham radio every afternoon at 4 o'clock and read the local news for the local news station. That's you're not allowed to do that. Music can only be rebroadcast as part of an authorized rebroadcast of a space station's transmissions. In other words, when you get on an amateur radio, you're not supposed to have music playing. But now, if you're communicating to the space station and they've got a radio playing in the background, when you're talking to them, you may hear that radio in the background. So the music, it's okay to do that, but you're not supposed to turn a radio on and be transmitting the music over the amateur bands. Retransmitting the signals of another station is prohibited except when relaying messages or digital data from another station. All right, we've got some practice questions here. Whoops. For some reason, can you all see me and everything?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Okay. Some reason I've lost you guys. I can't see you all. But anyway, we'll just go on. When will willful interference to other amateur radio when is willful interference to other amateur radio stations permitted? To stop another amateur station that is breaking the FCC rules at no time, when making short test transmissions, at any time stations in the amateur radio service are not protected from willful interference. In other words, when can you interfere with another amateur station?
At no time.
At no time. So the answer is B. Which of the following applies when two stations transmitting on the same frequency interfere with each other? The stations to negotiate continued use of the frequency. Both stations should choose another frequency to avoid conflict. Interference is inevitable, so no action is required. It seems like that sometimes, but I'm going to tell you that's not the answer. You use subaudible tones so both stations can share the frequency. That's not the answer. So what the correct answer is, the station should negotiate continued use of the frequency. Usually if I am on a frequency and somebody comes in, I'll let them know the frequency's in use. And if they say, hey, we're getting ready to run a net here, we do it every Tuesday night at this such and such time, then I will relinquish the frequency and I'll move to another one. And so you kind of have to negotiate and decide what best is to do there. Which of the following restrictions apply when a non-licensed person is allowed to speak to a foreign station using a station under the control of a licensed amateur operator? The person must be a U.S. station, a citizen. The foreign station must be in a country with which the U.S. has a third-party agreement. The licensed control operator must do the station identification, or D, all of these choices are correct.
Bravo.
Bravo. The foreign station must be in a country with which the U.S. has a third-party agreement. So the answer is B. What is the definition of third-party communications? A message from a control operator to another amateur station control operator on behalf of another person. An amateur radio communication where three stations are in communication with one another. Operation when transmitting equipment is licensed to a person other than the control operator. Temporary authorization of unlicensed person to transmit on the amateur bands for technical experiments.
It'll be
Alpha.
Alpha, A. A message from one radio operator to another radio operator on behalf of another person. So the answer is going to be A. Which of the following are required for remote control operation? The control operator must be at the control point. A control operator is required at all times. A control operator must indirectly manipulate the controls, or D, all of these choices are correct.
Bravo.
Yep, that one's correct. So is A, the control operator must be at the control point. And so is C. The control operator must indirectly manipulate the controls. So the answer would be D. All these choices are correct. So, so for remote control operation, the control point might be a computer or a phone, or the internet so many miles away. The control operator is required at all times when they're operating the radio, and you must be able to manipulate the controls either directly or indirectly. So the answer is D. Which of the following is an example of remote control as defined by Part 97? So remote control, repeater operation, operating the station over the internet, controlling a model aircraft or boat or car by amateur radio, or D, all these choices are correct and be careful. It's going to be B, operating the station over the internet. So controlling a model aircraft or boat or car by amateur radio, when you, as defined in Part 97, it's an example of remote control. It's going to be operating your radio over the internet. I know some people have their radio and they'll go on a trip and they're able to, through their computer, transmit from wherever they are over the radio, and it appears like they're at home, but they're actually maybe in Florida and their radio may be in Kentucky. Who is accountable if a repeater inadvertently retransmits communications that violate the FCC rules? All right, is it the control operator of the originating station? In other words, the person who's violated the rules. Is it the control operator of the repeater, the owner of the repeater, both the originating station and the repeater owner? Kind of tricky, but remember, the repeater is just retransmitting a communication. The communication that violates the FCC rules is going to come from the control operator of the originating station or the radio where the violation occurred. So it's going to be A. It's not going to be the repeater operator because, they're just retransmitting what they hear. It's not going to be the owner of the repeater. And they don't, the FCC doesn't hold both parties responsible. It's going to be where that violation started from, and it's going to be the control operator of the originating station. What, if any, are the restrictions concerning transmission of the language that may be considered indecent or obscene? The FCC maintains a list of words that are not permitted or used on amateur frequencies. Any such language is prohibited. The ITU maintains a list of words that are prohibited. There's no such prohibition. The answer is going to be B. You should not use indecent or obscene language on the radio. Does it happen? Yes. There's certain frequencies that you're going to get on, and it would make the devil blush to hear some of these folks, but you're not supposed to do it. You're in violation of the FCC rules when you do. So the answer is B. Any such language is prohibited. When may an amateur operator use their station to notify other amateurs of availability of equipment for sale or trade? Now we're talking about radio equipment. The answer A, never. B, when the equipment is not the personal property of either the station licensee or the control operator or their close relatives. When no profit is made on the sale, when selling amateur radio equipment and not on a regular basis. So the answer on that one's going to be D, because you're selling, I've got a little HT, it's a little Baofeng I no longer use. I'm just going to sell it, get a few dollars out of it, and I don't do that every week. So the answer is going to be D. So, and as I said, a lot of amateur radio clubs will conduct a trader's net where people can sell their equipment that they no longer use or they upgraded and they want to get rid of the older equipment. So the answer is D. In which of the following circumstances may the control operator of an amateur station receive compensation pay for operating that station? When the communication is related to sale of amateur radio equipment, when the communication is incidental to classroom instruction at an educational institution, when communication is made to obtain emergency information for local broadcast station. D, all these choices are correct. And if you remember, we said earlier the only person that could be paid would be a teacher teaching about ham radio in their classroom at an educational institution. So it's going to be B is the answer. When is it permissible to transmit messages encoded to obscure the meaning? Only during contests, only when transmitting certain approved digital codes, only when transmitting control commands to space stations or radio control craft. D, never.
Never.
That's what I would have thought D, but actually the answer is transmitting control commands to space stations or radio control craft. So you're allowed to do encoded messages, but it's only when you're doing it for space stations or radio control craft. So the answer is C. Kind of a tricky question there. Under which of the following circumstances are one-way transmissions by an amateur station prohibited? In all circumstances, when you're broadcasting international Morse code practice, telecommand, or transmissions of telemetry. The answer is going to be B. You're not allowed to broadcast. You can do Morse code practice. You can transmit telemetry. You can have a station that's transmitting. So that's not in all circumstances, but in broadcasting, because you've got two circumstances here where you can. So it's kind of a trick, but broadcasting you're not allowed to do. Under what conditions is an amateur station authorized to transmit music using a phone emission? Now, we talked about this a while ago. When incidental to an authorized retransmission of manned spacecraft communications, when the music produces no spurious emissions, when transmissions are limited to less than 3 minutes per hour, when music is transmitted above 1,280 megahertz. Whoops, I clicked too quick. It's when it's incidental to an authorized transmission from a manned spacecraft communication. So the answer is A. What types of amateur stations can automatically retransmit signals of other amateur stations? Auxiliary, beacon, or earth stations, an earth station, a repeater, or space stations, a beacon, a repeater, or space station, a repeater, auxiliary, or space station.
Beacon, repeater, or space stations.
Now, beacon just, you're talking about automatically retransmit the signal. A beacon does not automatically retransmit. It's giving out information. It's sending, a beacon is broadcasting a signal so you can see how far that signal's coming from. A repeater will retransmit, so does a space station. So up here, that's going to eliminate this one. This one's going to be eliminated, so it's going to be the repeater, auxiliary station, or a space station. So its answer is D. So just remember, a beacon doesn't transmit, it doesn't retransmit a signal. It only transmits a signal. All right. When may amateur stations transmit information in support of broadcasting, program production, or news gathering, assuming no other means is available? when such communications are directly related to the immediate safety of human life or protection of property. Now, we've talked about this before, human life, when broadcasting communications to or from the space shuttle, when non-commercial programming is gathered and supplied exclusively to the National Public Radio Network, or never. And I caution, my first response would be never, but when you see safety of human life or protection of property, that's kind of a clue that you can use your radio for that, and the answer is going to be A. How does the FCC define broadcasting for the amateur radio service? Two-way transmissions by amateur stations, any transmission made by the licensed station, transmission of messages directed only to amateur radio operator, transmissions intended for the reception by the general public. So we're broadcasting information, and it's when you think about radio broadcast like your local radio station, it's transmissions intended for reception by the general public. So you're not allowed to do that. And that's the end of Module 8, and we're ready to go to Module 9. But what I thought we'd do is let me get out of this. And there you guys are. I want to go, I don't want to start Module 9, and that's going to be our last module. So what I'd like to do is for a few minutes, we're going to quit a little early tonight, and then next week we'll finish up Module 9. And then if you guys want to meet again, we can. If you think you're ready for your test, we can get you started in that. But how many of you are using Ham Study or to study?
I am.
Okay. And let me get Zoom up here. And I'm going to share my desktop. Let's see if I can move this over here. All right. When I look over this way like this, I'm looking at another monitor. All right. Can you see my that I've got Ham Study up on my screen? Can everybody see that? Yep.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's go into the technician. You want to go into your study mode. And if you haven't created an account, you need to do that. I've had an account on here for quite a while. I really didn't start using Ham Study as much until I got to my general, until I got to my extra studies when I was studying to become an extra class ham radio operator. And let me just see if I can, I'll just show you. And you can see my study progress here. When I was studying for my extra, I got to the point where I had seen all the questions, and I had an aptitude. I don't think it was this high, but it was like at 87%. So when I got to this high of an aptitude, I felt like I'm ready to go take the test. So I was able to go to a local club, not my club that I'm a member of, but there's a club about 25 miles down the road, and they offered the test through Exam Tools. Now, Exam Tools is the same as Ham Study. The guy that developed Ham Study developed Exam Tools, and the ARRL and everybody else is moving to Exam Tools because you can take your test. You can know within about 10 seconds once you complete your test whether or not you passed. And once the government gets open back up, which it should here, hopefully by next week, we can go in and get your FRN numbers. But you can have your license probably within 2 or 3 days once you pay that $35 fee. To take the test again, it's $15. Once you take the test and you know you pass, the club that you take it with will send that information, your passing grade, on to the ARRL, who in turn sends it to the FCC. Once they enter that in the database, they're going to send you an email. You'll go in and you'll pay your $35 fee. You'll be given the opportunity, and I'll repeat this several times, to look at your completed certificate with them. Don't touch it. You just pay the $35 fee and leave. And then the next day you should have your license. So that's how quickly it will work. When I first got my technician license, it took me probably about 2 weeks before I knew I'd passed I knew I'd passed the test, but it took me about 2 weeks to get my call sign. So this ham study and exam tools really has streamlined the process. So I want to go back now. Let me go back here and let's practice a little bit in the technician class license. So you go into study mode. Now, well, let's go back here one more time before I take off again. You can take practice tests. Now, I don't think I may have taken 1 or 2 practice tests. What I want you guys to do, I want you to make sure you see all of the questions. And you can see I've not used this to study for technician, but I want you to see all the questions. So you need to get this up to 100%. And then you want this number to get up to about 87, 85%. Because remember, when you take the technician test, you need to get 26, I believe, of the 35 questions right. And if you're like me, you want to get as many right as possible. But once you hit that magic number, then you want to, it doesn't matter whether you get 26 or 35 out of 35, you're still going to be a technician ham radio operator. So you want to go and you want to start studying these questions. Which of the following types of propagation is most commonly associated with occasional strong signals on the 10, 6, and 2 meter bands from beyond the radio horizon? Is it the D region, the gray line propagation, or sporadic E? Anybody want to take a guess?
Sporadic E.
That's what I'm going to guess too. I don't remember, but I'm going to guess sporadic E. So that is correct. So we go to the next one. Which of the following types of solder should not be used for radio or electronic applications?
C.
I'm not going to read them because my voice is going, but the answer is C, acid core. And if you remember, that's because acid can eat up electronic components, so you don't want to use that. How many milliamperes is 1.5 amperes?
1,500.
If you remember, it's milli means a 1,000, so you're going to move it over 3 points. So 1, 2, 3, it's going to be 1,500. And which type of circuit is a DC current the same through all components?
Series.
Series? I'd say I believe you're right on that. I'll be honest with you, I always got those confused when I was studying. What is a relay?
B.
B, an electronically controlled switch. What device increases the transmitted output power from a transceiver?
Amplifier.
An amplifier. C. What is required before using the Echolink system?
C.
C. Remember, we talked about this. You don't even have to buy a radio if you want to, like, if you want to participate in Kentucky Colonel's Amateur Radio Net. Once you get your call sign and a copy of your license, you can send that in or upload it to the EchoLink site, and you can download the EchoLink software on your phone, your computer, your iPad, or whatever your tablet, and you can participate in a radio net, not own a radio. So it's C. Which term describes the rate at which electrical energy is used? Crickets.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble seeing it or seeing the questions.
Okay, which term describes the rate at which electrical energy is used? Is it current, resistance, voltage, or power?
Power.
Going to be power. All right, let me see. Can I? And if you'll notice too, just like on the exam tools, when you take your test, you can choose the answer A, B, C, or D. I've been clicking on them, but then it rolls up, and that's the way the test will be. The test questions will roll up. You can always scroll back down to see, like maybe you didn't know this one and you wanted to skip it and come back to it. You'll be able to do that. Also, up on the upper left-hand corner of the test screen, it will tell you T5A10 you didn't answer if that was one of the questions. What type of signaling uses pairs of audio tones? DTMF, CTCSS, GPRS, or D-Star?
CTCSS?
I'm going to guess CTCSS, and we're both wrong. Let's show the correct answer. It's DTMF, pairs of audio. So now what's going to happen as I'm studying here, that question will come back up here in a few minutes. What is an amateur radio station that connects other amateur radio stations to the internet? Repeater, gateway, beacon, or digipeater?
Gateway.
It's going to be a gateway. I do know that one. What is a LEO satellite? Sun synchronous satellite, satellite in low Earth orbit, highly elliptical orbit satellite, a satellite in low energy operation mode. That's me, D.
D. Oh.
No, no, B.
Oh.
I'm low energy operation after the time change. I tell you. No, the answer is going to be B, low Earth orbit. That's what LEO stands for. So I was just kidding you. Which of the following is true when installing ground conductors for use for lightning protection? Common grounds must be avoided. Wires must be carefully routed with precise right angle bends. Sharp bends must be avoided. Use only non-insulated wire.
Sharp bends must be avoided.
Sharp bends must be avoided. Right angle, that's a pretty sharp bend, so the answer is going to be C. How many operator primary station licensing grants may be held by any one person?
One.
One. C. Now, as I've said before, when you get these tests, I mean, when you get to the test, don't remember the answer is C. Remember one, because the next time you see this question on a test, it may be answer B. So remember the answer, not the letter. What is the approximate bandwidth of a VHF repeater FM voice signal? Between 50 and 125, between 500, less than 500, between 10 and 15, about 150 kilohertz.
At 10 and 15?
I think it's that. Yes, between 10 and 15. What is meant by the statement that a satellite is operating in U/V mode? The satellite operates using ultraviolet frequencies. Ultraviolet, no. The satellite frequencies are usually variable. The satellite uplink is in the 15-meter band and the downlink is in the 10-meter band. The satellite uplink is in the 70 centimeter band and the downlink is in the 2 centimeter band.
D.
I'm going to go with D. And the answer is correct. So you can see as we're answering these questions, our amplitude is going up. How many we've seen, the percentage is going up. Why do exposure limits vary with frequency? Higher frequency RF fields are transient in nature. Lower frequency RF fields have more energy than higher energy fields, frequency fields. Low frequency RF fields do not penetrate the human body. The human body absorbs more RF energy at some frequency than at others.
D.
The answer is going to be D. We're up to 21%. Which of the following operating activities is supported by digital mode software in the WSJTX software suite? Meteor scatter, weak signal propagation beacons, Earth, Moon, Earth, or all the choices are correct. Notice that in this one, instead of being D, it's up here. That was my dog that just howled for some reason, if you heard that. Anybody want to take a stab?
All
Weak
of them.
signal.
All right, weak signal propagation beacons. Remember,
Beacon doesn't transmit.
beacon doesn't transmit. Let's just say I don't know this time. And the answer is going to be all these choices are correct. So we'll remember that. What is a satellite beacon? The primary transmit antenna on a satellite, an indicator light that shows where to point your antenna, a transmission from a satellite that contains status information, a reflective surface on the satellite.
C.
Transmission from a satellite that contains status
Status information.
I
Okay.
got it right now.
Yeah. What is a good way to guard against electrical shock at your station? All three wire cords and use three wire cords and plugs for all AC powered equipment. Install mechanical interlocks in high voltage circuits. Connect all AC powered station equipment to common safety grounds. And D, all these choices are correct. Just from my basic knowledge of electrical stuff, you want to try to have cords and plugs with three wires that has a ground built into them. You do want to have some kind of interlock if you're using high voltage circuits. So I'm going to guess all these choices are correct. And so that's how I got that question. What is the function of component 2 in figure T1? Convert electrical energy to radio waves, control the flow of current, give off light when current flows through it, supply electrical energy.
Controls the flow of current.
Control the flow of current. It's going to be B. And the way I kind of remember that one, this is a transistor. You've got a lamp here and a battery, so it's going to control the current. But this is going to a ground, so to me, it's either going to send it this way or it's going to send it to the ground. So it's kind of my way of remembering that it's controlling where that current flows. Which of the following conductors is preferred for bonding at RF? Twisted pair cable, copper braided, removed from coaxial cable, flat copper strap, or steel wire. Bonding, you're grounding. So what's the recommended? If you remember,
Flat copper strap.
a flat copper strap. What electronic component allows current to flow in only one direction?
Diode.
It's going to be a diode. What component allows current to flow in one direction and emits light?
Oh, that's a LED.
LED.
An LED, light emitting diode. And how's that? What's the symbol for an LED? What do you see off of a when you're looking at a electronic symbol for LED? What tells you it's an LED? You remember?
Um, Zigzags going up at a
Yeah, like two zigzag arrows coming off of a diode that tells you that it's a LED. What is component 4 in figure T3?
That'd be the
Antenna.
antenna.
It's going to be the antenna. Looks like an antenna. That's an easy one. Which of these components can be used as an electronic switch? A thermistor, a varistor, transistor, or potentiometer?
Was it D?
transistor.
I'm going to go with C, transistor.
Oh,
Potentiometer is an adjustable resistor, remember? And where do you see that on your
was that
radio?
the volume?
The volume. Yes.
Okay.
So it's going to be transistor. Under what circumstances is it safe to climb a tower without a helper or observer? Well, that's next week, but let's see if we can use some common sense on this question. When no electrical work is being performed, now you're going to climb a big tall tower and you don't have a helper or an observer. When no mechanical work is being performed, never when when the work being done is not more than 20 feet above the ground.
I'd say never.
Never climb a tower without somebody there, because even at 20 feet, or for me, even at 5 feet, if I fall off, I'm going to break something. So that's just a common sense one, and we will talk about that in Module 9 next week. Okay, I'm gonna stop there, but you can see how, as I'm studying here, my aptitude has gone from just in this short little time, I've gone from 19 to 22%. I've seen 36% of the questions. Now, we're back. You remember the question that we missed a while ago? So it's back up here, and you can, if you don't remember, you can miss it again, and it's going to keep bringing you back to that question until you get it right. Okay. So in this case, it's C. All these choices are correct. So that's what I like about Ham Study. You now kind of understand, we've gone through and we've talked about every question almost. We got one unit left, but Ham Study will help you with the questions that you have difficulty with, and it will keep drilling you until you know the answers to the questions that you miss. Any questions from you guys?
Does the Ham Study cost to get in on that?
No, sir. It's free. Everything that I've taught in this class, I try to give you. It's free. You just sign up and create you an account. You can see I've got an account here. I'm going to log out, and so you can log in. You register for free, and once you sign in and give them some information, you've got a free account, and you can use that to practice the questions, and it does not cost you anything. And the questions that you see on Ham Study are the same questions that I've gone over in the lessons, and it's also the same questions you'll see on the test.
Now, in your classes that you've had all the sessions, you're covering all 411 questions, correct?
Yes, sir. I've covered them all.
I thought.
Yep. I'm using ARRL's, the presentations that you see I got them from ARRL, and I'm using those. And then, of course, I've added some things to match my teaching style, I guess. And, but all the questions, the practice questions that we've covered are the same practice questions that you'll see Well, they won't be practice questions, but they're the same questions that you could get on the test. You'll get 35 of the questions out of all the ones that we've covered. Any other questions?
You did mention last week, I have my GMRS, so I already
Uh-huh.
have an FRN number, so I don't
Yep.
have to do anything.
Yes, you don't have to do anything. That's the same FRN number you'll use to sign up and take the test.
Thank you.
And in fact, when you all get ready, we'll go here and like I said, if you want to do take your test at home, I've got a group of folks that I work with that from across the country. We can sign you up through them and get your testing session from your couch. Okay.
Sounds great.
All right. If nothing else, you all have a good rest of the week. Try to stay warm if you're in a cold area like me, and we'll finish up hopefully next week, and then from there we'll see what you guys want to do. Whether you want to have another session, and we just practice, or you're ready to take your test, we'll get it set up. So,
Thank you for the list.
all right. You all have a good week, and we'll see you next week.
Sounds great.
Yes,
night.
thank you. Have a great week.
Everybody
All
have a
right.
great
You
week.
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.